Nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down. My brothers on the ground, I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast, brought to you by the Scottish Rugby Blog. I am Cammy Black. Joining me this evening, it's our 150th episode. Inexplicably, we've managed to hit the big 150. We're not doing anything special for it. As I was typing it in today to set the live stream up, I suddenly realised we were on 150. This shows how well prepared we are for these things in advance. Anyway, joining me for this momentous occasion, we have Rory Baldwin. Good evening, Rory.
Hello, how are you?
John Anderson.
Good evening, folks.
And Ian Hay. Good evening, Ian.
Hello, I've just noticed one of my posters is squint now.
That's what this is.
That's going to bug me.
If at any point tonight, and you've already taken us for a beer a couple of times this year to the fridge during... you say the once, yeah. So if you need to get up and straighten it, you can do.
I guess I'll be fine for now. I'll just lean over so I can't see it. There we go.
I've done that before on the live video. I actually moved my chair very slightly to like get a decent guitaring shot.
Yeah, I'm in the kids' playroom, as we've discussed before on the podcast. All you can see is a pile of boxes.
What's in the red box?
The red box is Sylvanian families.
Oh, class. class.
Yeah, there's trains somewhere down there. I've got a toy kettle here that makes strange sounds when you pick it up.
There seems to be a chicken stuck in your kettle.
Oh, Ian, you're now au fait with chicken, aren't you? After your birthday antics.
Wow. I know. Double antihistamine hit.
Back on the chicken, Ian.
Back on the chicken. Deep into the chicken. I don't know yet. I don't know if I'm going to go elbow deep into it, but we'll see.
Yeah, moving on anyway. If you're watching us this evening, you can watch us on YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch, and you can also watch us on other places as well. If you listen to the podcast, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Acast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you can get your podcasts from. We're on them all, I think. If you've got a favourite podcast app and we're not there, let me know and we can sort that out. You can find us on the blog as well, scottishRugbyblog.co.uk, for the latest news and views on Scottish rugby. You can also, if you want to listen to the podcast without adverts, or you think that we ramble on too much and you'd rather have a condensed version of the pod, or you just want to support what we do, you can sign up for our Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast, then you can sign up to the Patreon for £3 a month, and that will get you into the Richie Vernon Thunderdome. If you pay £5 a month, then you get into the Dougie Donnelly Members Lounge, where we'll take your coat, sit you down, buy you a lovely drink. We'll also read your name, a virtual drink, I should say. We don't actually have the ability to give you drinks over the internet. We're a responsible establishment. If you pay £5 a month, though, you get your name read out on the podcast. So big thank you to, well, we've had a few sign up since last time. So we've got Dave Grzybowski, and I hope I pronounced that correctly, Colin Black, no relation, I don't think, Matt Blake, and Jamie Gervin, who has paid £10 a month. So you can pay more than £5. So thank you very much to Jamie. And if you do that, you're supporting the podcast. And in return, we'll give you exclusive content.
See, I do like Grzybowski. It sounds like a sort of grizzled New York cop.
I'd like to think that he thinks he's signed up for some true crime podcast and by accident. Yeah, I think he is. I think he's a genuinely Scottish rugby fan. He's on the super secret Facebook page as well, which you can get access to if you sign up to the Patreon. And there's lots of good fun chat over there. So if our patrons have chosen their own Lions 15 as well, which we're going to be talking about later on. We are also sponsored by Manscaped. I know I said that was coming to an end, but it's been so successful, inexplicably so successful, that they've asked to continue sponsoring us, and we've said yes, they can. They can continue to give us money in return for us pimping out their products. So this month, as you go, we're back in rugby training. For those of you still non-contact, I think they're aiming for contact around the 24th of April. But obviously, you want to get yourself back in shape. So now is the time to get yourself all prepped down below. Invest in some male grooming equipment from Manscaped. You can buy some trimmers. You can get various oils and ointments. You can get nose hair trimmers. And if you go to manscaped.com/Scottish Rugby or manscaped.com and put in the code SRP, you will get 20% off plus free shipping. So it's manscaped.com, enter the code SRP, and you get 20% off plus free shipping, and you'll be helping the podcast out as well. It's also, Manscaped do kind of support and promote testicular cancer charities. So, if you are trimming or having a little check down there, it's recommended to have a little check once a month. If you find anything unusual, get yourself to the doctor. So, it's all they do good things for good causes as well. So that is who we are sponsored by, and we will be for the next 3 months. After that, who knows? We shall see. Anyway, on with the rugby. Given the training's back on, what I should say is we did used to have a regular section of the podcast called Crap Call-Offs, but we haven't had any because the pandemic called off all rugby. So kind of it's the biggest crap call-offs. Yeah, exactly, the crappiest call-off of them all. So now training's back on, we'd like your crap call-offs again. So if anybody's called off training or a game when games get back on for a really crap reason, do let us know, and we're happy to name and shame. We've had examples in the past. We had a prop who went to a ballet. We had a fully grown adult man who went pony trekking with his grandmother. There was a lad who had a big tea the night before and was still too full to train. And then we've had various people get their hair cut and gone on shopping trips with their significant others.
Was there not one boy? It was something to do with crashing a submarine in an oil rig or something.
Yeah.
Yes,
that was a pretty spectacular crap call off.
I think we had two. I think we had a double crap call off with that one for the same incident. I think someone got stuck on the oil rig, and then I think we also then had the person who then had to go and fix the oil rig called off from their own match. Who wrote in the week after?
Could we also say like a crap call off for rugby training is like being on live here potentially?
Potentially. There's some little bits of news this week. Dominic Mackay is leaving the SRU slightly earlier than thought, and Nathan Bombrey's now. John and Ian, you may know what he's gone to do. Is he's gone to a job at the big house at Murrayfield. He's not managing director of Glasgow anymore. What's he doing at Murrayfield? Do we know?
Some kind of promo thing, isn't it?
Yeah, something
head of promotions, international
head of international commercial projects.
Well, there you go. Well done.
So basically, he's now in charge of old boys DC or whatever they're called.
Yeah, trying to get as much money out of the American market as possible.
Yep.
Yeah,
would be my guess.
Yeah. So the suggestion is, I think certainly the offside line was suggesting that Dominic Mackay's role may just be kicked in the long grass, and various people might get bits of it to do. So the role might not exist anymore, which is why Nathan Bombrey's may have moved across. The other bit of news, although it's not news yet, it'll be news tomorrow, is the SRU are going to announce 2 new sponsors tomorrow at, I think, 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock in the morning. Set 2 separate announcements. I mean, I'm assuming it's BT and Macron.
I wanted to bring back the little Famous Grouse remote control kicking tee thing.
Oh, how good was that?
Yeah.
Famous Grouse are all over other things. They're over like English Premiership and stuff now, though. They've moved on from just being a Scottish concern.
Yeah. Well, we can but dream. Tunnock's Tea Cakes was the other popular one, but I don't think Tunnock's are particularly popular in Scotland at the minute for various political reasons. I couldn't think of anybody else that would be hankering after sponsor. Tennent's maybe, because they do the quote man of the match, which is the can of Tennent's frozen in ice.
Yeah, I mean,
Martin Bell has suggested Manscaped to sponsor the SRU too. Could be. I'm still not convinced that Manscaped don't believe that actually we are the SRU.
They think we're the official one or something.
The official one, yeah, going, right, we're doing really good. Yeah, Jordan Gooseline says you can tell the hairdressers are open by the look of the 4 of you. These are news. But this is, I have to say, this is self-inflicted, not with a Manscaped razor, I should add. That was Ian.
Yeah,
I have not had a haircut.
I went a wee trim with my Manscaped razor the other day, actually, and then got the old Mac 3 on it.
Yeah, multi-use, you see.
I would like to stress that I used it on my head before I use it anywhere else, just so we're clear on that.
Make sure you clean it afterwards.
Well, it was fresh out the pack, you see. So.
There you go.
Fresh new blade.
Tonight we're going to do a Six Nations review, and we'll also do a bit of Lions chat because everybody else is choosing their Lions 15, so we thought we should do the same too. First though, Scotland women played England women at the weekend and went down 52-10. It's been interesting, some of the posts, I think, particularly on some of the forums this week, John. I don't know why this seems to have come as a surprise to a lot of people that Scotland have a women's team, and everybody's all of a sudden very concerned about the fact that they don't seem to be getting much funding and aren't doing particularly well.
Yes, well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we have only been bleating about it for, almost every week for probably about 3 years. But yeah, it's weird, isn't it, when they kind of shifted the dates of the Six Nations, obviously, and it's almost like it almost shows how little Glasgow and Edinburgh's matches at the weekend actually mattered to anyone. That the women's game's got such a kind of bit of profile from it, and it's it's good. It's good in ways that people are asking the question, particularly around funding. But it's been that way for quite some time, and I think we've talked about it on exclusive ones. We've talked about it on the normal podcast as well. So yeah, they don't get funded very well. We should fund them more.
Yeah, but it was. I mean, saying that, Ian, there was quite a lot of positives to take out of the game. I mean, I think there were 12-3 down just outside the first quarter, which isn't bad. The defense was, good in places, and I think that's kind of what they have to do up against kind of the professional outfit of England, where I think the majority of players are playing in Prem 15s and have been training much more regular than the majority of the Scottish players. Is to look for the small positives in a game like that.
Yeah, I mean, they're outgunned from the start. It's bringing a knife to a gunfight. Yeah, a couple of things I was particularly impressed by was set piece, scrum. I've seen the scrums go a lot worse than that, for example. Obviously, they were going to be under pressure, but I think they only maybe conceded one penalty at the scrum. The rest of the time it was all right. Line out started off very well, had some very good variation on that as well. Skeldon, Wassell and McMillan all did pretty well there. And when on the few occasions they did get into England 22, they actually showed pretty good composure to keep possession for multiple phases. It's just that every now and then, that little bit of execution lets them down. And then once England got on the attack, it was just, they just too much power. And if Scotland did get a chance to exit, obviously they couldn't get quite enough welly on it, and it just comes back at you quicker.
Yeah, I thought Hannah Smith stood up for me, Rory. I thought she was really good in defence. There was a couple of she's very quick to the breakdowns. A couple of times I thought she probably had earned a penalty, but the referee, maybe just with Scotland being on the back foot, kind of wasn't seeing things their way, and she took a try really well as well.
Yeah, the try was taken well. I mean, it sort of reminded me a little bit of watching the men's team in the 2000s. I mean, obviously in the 2000s, the issues were that the other countries were professional and Scotland didn't really know what it was to be professional. That's not necessarily the case here, but it's just they've only got 9 players with pro contracts, so it's more it produces a similar imbalance in terms of how they go. And I mean, there were some bits they look great. Certainly there was a lot of heart. I think that some of the England girls were a bit bigger, so I think there were sort of power mismatches, and England were quite astute at using those power, identifying the mismatches and kind of exploiting them. But I thought it was more like rugby as you remember rugby when you watch it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, there's it's Italy next in a couple of weeks. Ian, I think you probably would expect Scotland to have a bit more of a game of it against Italy.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw Italy play Scotland, it was a total mud bath a couple of years ago, and it should have been called off. Italy have had the upper hand fairly comfortably recently. I can't remember what the score was last. They weren't able to play it last year.
No, it was cancelled due to the coronavirus.
I think it was just before France. So I was maybe going to the France game and that got canned. I think Italy would probably start as favourites, but like you said, I do expect Scotland to take more of a game of it, and just need to cut out. It seems to be when Scotland, it's this sort of thing of compounding errors. It's like first there'll be a forward pass, and then they'll give away a penalty at the next scrum, and then it's a line out, 5 meters out, and then and you've got problems there. So yeah, I do expect a bit more of a game of it, but I would just make Italy favourites.
Yeah,
but when it's your first game back in over a year, it's the first game a lot of these folks have played in over a year, and it's you all know yourself what it's like to, after not playing for a while, even after a long summer off, you go into the park and the errors do happen. So do that for a full year and watch how badly it goes. So I think ultimately there was a lot, as you guys have said, there was a lot of positives to take from the weekend, and that hit out will serve them really well against Italy.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's it's positive that a number of the
Oh, he's gone.
Oh, this is
He does this. He does this. He makes good points and then disappears. And he'll be blabbering away just now, and then we're talking over the top of him. So it's all good.
Any of the rest of us are actually expendable, but
that's
he's asking a question.
That's true. So, no, I think the whole women's game thing. It's really he's back. Yay!
I'm back. Yeah, my internet's gone. My connection is unstable. I'm sat next to the router, frustratingly.
Did you not say that BT? You had someone from BT due to come
I've still got my complaint in with BT, Ian. Don't you worry. I've had £20 off my bill so far. They'll be sponsoring this podcast by the end of it.
Yeah. Well, we should put out a tweet.
Yeah, tomorrow that's what I'll do. I'll just keep. When they get announced as the big sponsor tomorrow, I'll do a protest tweet.
Tweet, yeah.
I refuse to watch any. I refuse to discuss any Scottish rugby on my podcast until you sort out my broadband.
You use the full power of the bitter Scottish tweet army that we've got. Apparently,
yeah. Apparently, well, that's it. I found out today that I'm one of the least positive tweeters about rugby in the UK. Yeah,
do you think you'll ask for naming rights to the podcast?
Was that an official title, or was this bestowed upon you by somebody in particular?
No, it's an algorithm.
All right.
Somebody had analysed several top rugby accounts, not including the official Scottish Rugby blog account, I should add. But they ranked them. I think they used like language analysis to figure out, if they were tweeting positively or negatively. So and then you get top 50 right down at the bottom of the list. You've got G Love, you've got Camby, and you've got the offside line all just grouped together, sort of just off the bottom of the table.
To be fair, you have to have tweeted more positively than negatively to make the list because they want to see. So, but I barely creeped in above.
That's why none of us are on there now.
Yeah, so we are officially less positive, one of the least positive rugby podcasts out there. As if you didn't already know that. Where were we talking about the women's game before I got really cut off by my router?
We are, yeah.
I think what the point I was making is there are positives in signing, green shoots given the number of women that are playing in Prem 15s from Scotland, and also I think it's 2 or 3 players in the Olympic 7 squad.
Yeah, there were. I think there were more than that, weren't there? Let's go and have a look.
I know I can't remember this. This was off this was off notes. You see. That was off the top of my head.
Tried to go off script there for a second.
I know, and then I thought one of you would jump in and know. You see.
Holy crap! Sorry, have you seen the fantasy league, the women's fantasy league?
I was going to come on to that, Ian. I'll come on to that and give you a moment in the sun in a minute.
Thanks.
Tick you doing well.
Yeah, so we've got Megan Gaffney and Rona Lloyd, Helen Nelson, Chloe Rowley, Hannah Smith, and Lisa Thompson. So there's, again, it's good. They're doing good for, given the difference. It's a reasonable amount of representation within the squad as well.
Yeah, again, mostly backs though, isn't it? So I mean, I think that maybe plays into what we were talking about there about power, the sort of power side of the game, which is something that the men have always struggled with as well in Scotland. It's something that we as a nation need to develop. Yeah.
We might talk about the power side of that and Matt Williams later on in Hands in the
I've not even thought of one of them.
See, this is what you do, Rory. You figure it out during the show. This is the great fun of it.
My hands in the up will be my poster is also squint.
Ooh.
Within the frame. The frame is straight, but the poster itself is.
Maybe it's Cammy's laptop. We're all confused.
You're all squint. Yeah, we do have a women's Six Nations fantasy league going, and we've got our little pool. And who's top of the Scottish Rugby Podcast League? Ian Hay.
Me by miles.
Yeah.
I'm 10th in Scotland at the moment.
Wow.
Only 10th.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean,
no, I was number 1 in the world.
Yeah,
week 1 at Super Brew.
Are you, so just to check in, because obviously there's rules regarding this sort of thing, what was your ratio of Scottish players picked?
I've had 5, I think. I had
5,
Rachel Matt
okay.
Williams, but she went off injured. I did at first have, I picked Rona Lloyd, but then, is she injured just now or something?
I think so, yeah.
23. But no, there was, I had Lana Skeldon as well, and Emma Wassel, and Hannah Smith.
All right, okay. Right, we'll let it go then.
Points mean prizes.
Yeah, so that's a good start. You know, I'm 10th out of 10 in the podcast league.
I could join it a week late and then
Still beat Cammy.
I wasn't going to say that. I think that would be doubtful.
Yeah. So we'll talk with the early games on in 2 weeks. I think it's going to be broadcast on the iPlayer. I think the round after that they're going to broadcast it live on BBC Scotland.
Good.
Which is finally, rather than the Hercule Poirot back-to-back that they decided to leave on this weekend instead of putting the women's rugby on.
They've run out of rights, and they're like, oh no, we can't show The Great Escape again. We need to save that for Father's Day. Come on.
So we're going to do our Six Nations review this week. And we should start by saying Hamish Watson was named player of the tournament. Thoroughly deserved. Well done to all the Scotland rugby fans for rigging yet another poll.
Yep. Any Scottish, if you find any polls you need rigged, give us a shout and we'll unleash the masses.
Or they have to be Scottish. It has to be, yeah. I mean, that's essentially how Stuart Hogg won twice.
Probably.
I'm not saying he didn't deserve it, but I think we ended up 5th both times.
Yeah, I mean,
he definitely had one good year.
Yeah,
his first one was a decent year. I think the second one we were all a bit surprised, but it was like the novelty of having won it the year before. We were just like, no, this has to happen again. Let's this will show them.
You're voting on your tablet. You're voting on all your devices.
That's it. Hiding your IP address so you can get all different.
Rory, overall, I mean, how do you think that Six Nations went in the cold light of day now we're past it?
I think I think you can. It's weird because yes, Jeremy Guskett can point out that you only finished 4th, or we only finished 4th, but that was I think by any measure a pretty successful tournament. We pasted Italy by the requisite amount, if not better than anybody else, and we won away in Paris and London for the first time in more than decades. In each case, it sort of, by contrast, makes the home results, the non-Italy home results, look kind of almost doubly disappointing, really, because that could have been a really successful tournament. But I think you've got to look at the progress in the areas that have traditionally dogged us, which is away results, which is not winning the games you're favourites in. I mean, you could argue that we might have been favourites in some of those Ireland-Wales games, but realistically, looking at past experience, that's maybe we would have been favourites in our own minds, but nobody else would have seen us as favourites for those games, probably. Certainly not with the way Wales are going and just our inability to beat Ireland in any way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you think of those 2 games, Ian, against Ireland and Wales, and even the game against France. To certainly say that's probably the first year that Scotland have been in every single game right to the death. And essentially, well, you could argue that against Ireland and Wales were beaten by the whistle rather than anything else. It's just that another kick, kick of the ball, another run, decision goes a different way, and those games are wins.
Yeah, and they say, the mark of a good team is one that plays badly and wins, and we were absolutely honking against Ireland, and we were still in it right until the death. Wales, again, I think we discussed this last week, we should really have had a chance for a shot at goal to win it because Williams pulled Hogg back off the ball. And again, in that, we were down to 14 for a while, so there is that bit of frustration, but like Rory said, I mean, I think we can regard it as a success to be competitive in every single game, and then to beat England and France away for the first time. Was it since 1926? I think was the last time we've done that.
Yeah,
in this season. So yeah, big monkeys off the back. With the exception of the Ireland game, the line out was probably better than it has been. The scrum's been sorted now for the last couple of years, ever since Rory Sutherland Rory Sutherland's come in and really kind of showed that up, and De Villiers, the work of Peter De Villiers, I think can't be ignored. So yeah, it's one of the most progressive years. But now it's
finished fifth.
Yeah, but it is just that fine little margin, that little bit at the end. So we're probably at about 98% complete. Now it's just going to crash next year, isn't it?
I mean, do you think, John, we can maybe? I think that Ireland game felt at the time like a step backwards, particularly where the lineup went. But maybe that's more of a blip, and I think Paul O'Connell's been given a lot of credit for some of the work that he's maybe done behind the scenes. So maybe in the cold light of day, that game wasn't as bad as we had it at the time.
Yeah, I mean, you can give credit to the opposition and say, but in all fairness, I think Ireland were really poor that day as well, and that was, it was kind of whoever was the least worst was going to win that game. And I mean, Scotland's line out, we can say that it was good the rest of the time, but it was just abominable against Ireland, and ultimately it did cost us the win, because I think Ireland were that bad. But we can always have an off day, and the fact is that sometimes you are just going to have those days where a set piece isn't going to work, particularly when we're on our third, fourth choice hookers, and we're the set piece was going to always be. It was a massive concern coming into it, and the fact that the line out in particular went as well as it did was a big surprise to everyone. So I think because I was quite critical at the time, but with a wee bit of hindsight, maybe we've done okay, but we still need to be, those days where things go wrong, we need to have a plan B and we need to be able to fix it quicker. And we didn't do that.
Yeah. What? Go on, Rory.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, the line out was abysmal, but they were putting Ian Henderson, who's like 6'6", at the front of it and just making him jump. I mean, you have to then throw over the top of him or go to the front every time. They sort of forced Scotland into making a decision. I don't know if it was the line out was bad. It was that maybe their decision making as to how to not be bad was bad.
Yeah, I get that, but I mean, I think ultimately at international level, you need to be doing more than, like, if it's easy for every opposition team just to put their biggest guy at the front and just go, do you know what, we're going to put him up there every single time, throw it over him. And if it was as easy as that to defend lineouts, we would have cracked it a long time ago, because we had, all the way back in the sort of late 90s, early 90s, we had some sizable second rows who, and we still didn't necessarily have the best lineout at the time. So I take that point, and credit does go to Ireland for their defence. I think they'd cracked the calls quite easily, actually. It seemed to be, I think, with Turner, and we've seen it at Glasgow quite a few times, once a couple go wrong, then the quality of the throw, it slows down slightly and it starts to become more easily intercepted. So I do think, I think there's possibly issues on both sides.
I think it's that problem solving on the pitch, isn't it? And that's maybe it's been a problem in other aspects of Scotland's game, and maybe they've been fixed. At the break, reading the break, how the referee's doing the breakdown and the scrum, and what the other opposition are doing. But maybe that was a sign that they haven't completely solved that problem, or that your third choice hooker isn't able to solve that problem.
I think it was noticeable actually when you brought in. So obviously, your first choice pair of Cummings and Gray, both very good line-out operators, but you wouldn't necessarily say either of them as a line-out specialist in the kind of traditional form. So it was interesting when Gilchrist comes in, to give him credit, the line-out did operate good again, and this really kind of, he took a lot of responsibility for calling the line-outs, whereas maybe with Cummings and Gray, it's not so kind of robust, the decision making behind it. But Yeah, I think we've got to have a plan B with that.
Well, that kind of selection headache brings us neatly on to what I'd asked you all to do, is to think about, you know, what is Scotland's best 15 now at the end of that tournament. And you know, there were, you know, a couple of names that didn't get an appearance, but I found this quite easy to do, and I'm quite interested to see how similar our 15s line up. We'll start at the back then. I'm guessing we all went for Hogg at 15.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's
he's a 10 now, mate.
10, yeah.
He's a 10. There was a great joke on Twitter for those that missed it. Was Sam Lana said last time we had Blair at 10, we invaded Iraq. I think we should. So I decided I think we should rename Blair Kinghorn Tonty.
Now,
Tonty Blair.
Thinking about it, so Mike Blair did play 10 for Scotland at some point.
Mike Blair's brother used to play for Edinburgh as a 10. David.
Dave,
yeah. And did they have another brother as well, Alex, who played?
There is. I don't think he played much at 10, but he was a 10. He didn't get picked that much, though. I don't think.
Yeah. So if Mike Blair played 10 at the same time as Tony Blair was in 10, then it's obvious why, you know, the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse Road.
I don't know that's how it works, John, but I like the idea.
It's exactly how it works.
I mean, I think Hogg had a good tournament as captain, I thought. He seemed to be communicating well with the referee and didn't seem to be flapping as much or trying to take things on himself, Ian.
Yeah, I thought it was his best sort of string of performances for quite some time. Kicked from hand brilliantly. There was a couple of absolute bombs against England and France, which were, you know, sort of highlight reel efforts. Got himself, was it 2? He got 2 against Wales, didn't he? 2 tries against Wales. Yeah, like I said, he didn't seem to get himself caught down blind alleys as much. I thought he was probably just behind sort of Watson and Harris as one of Scotland's best performers in the tournament.
Yeah. 14. Who have we gone for at 14? I've gone with Maitland.
As have I.
Based on current form, yes, Maitland.
Yeah, I mean, I love Darcy to bits, but I think what Maitland offers, and I think it kind of dispels the whole, you know, narrative coming out of English rugby that the Saracens players were just knackered, because Sean Maitland had a really good tournament up until we weren't allowed to select him because of some French players. The French, yeah. Did you have that? Did you have Maitland as well, Rory?
I actually picked Graham, but I can be persuaded just because I'm a big fan. But yeah, Maitland did have a pretty good tournament. I could be persuaded by the majority.
Just don't think Darcy's in great form at the moment. Usually I would pick Darcy Graham, but yeah.
He did enough. I think he'd had an injury, and then obviously he'd had a bit of time out as well. And then I think he did enough. I think it was a shame that he had to come off against Wales, because he was having a good game up until that point.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And, you know, again, it's that idea of, we've been in so many situations before where if you've got someone of the quality of Darcy Graham who goes out of form or struggles, we've not really had that ability to replace him. So having someone like Sean Maitland, who last year or year before last would have been first choice quite comfortably, it's a really good situation to be in.
Yeah. 13, Chris Harris. Is that unanimous?
Unanimous.
Yes.
As much as I love Hugh Jones, as much as I love him.
Ubiquitous and unanimous, Chris Harris.
Chris Harris.
I picked Hugh Jones.
Oh, Rory. Yes.
Did you go with Jones, Rory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I did. I picked Hugh Jones. I just think, I mean, Chris Harris did have a blinder in Paris and was probably a huge part of why we won that game. So he does have credit in the bank, despite what some people might sort of think or pronounce about him on the internet. But yeah, I think Jones's form was just it was irresistible for me. And I wonder, my back line is all attack. So that's why I put Darcy Gray in. That's why I put Hugh Jones in. I don't care about defence. We'll just score loads of tries.
Defensively, he had a good. I don't think he did anything wrong. It's just that I thought he had a very good game against Italy when Chris Harris was rested, and some good appearances off the bench. But he didn't get an opportunity to play enough against quality opposition for me to kind of think he's in ahead of Harris.
I think the thing with Jones this year is, probably if you take his club form into contention as well, he's been a massive standout for Glasgow this year in comparison to a lot of the dross we've had to put up with.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think you couldn't necessarily. I think Harris is very much the man in possession of the jersey, and you probably couldn't argue necessarily that Jones, as you said, had done enough to take it off him. But it's much closer than it was a year ago.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Martin Bell's pointed out Chris Harris is still 8-1 for the Lions, which I think is still stupid odds given some of the. Did anybody see the intercept against La Rochelle at the weekend? Where he intercepted in his own 22 and ran it out.
That's classic Harris.
Yep. 12. Now, I found 12 quite hard. I've gone with a double. I can't. The difficulty for me was I thought Cammy Redpath had such a good game against England, but then we didn't get to see him again. I can't hand on heart put him straight in. And Sam Johnson, but I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not entirely. Well, Tooney did, didn't he? Gregor Townsend did, didn't he? Son. So it's what I mean. Probably if based on the England game, I'd put Cammy Redpath at 12.
I've got Redpath.
Yeah. I thought Sam Johnson's probably the one below him, although they're different players, and I think that's therein lies the issue.
I think Johnson and Harris are quite similar, so if you're not letting me have Hugh Jones, then we need to put a bit of swashbuckling at 12.
Yeah. Well, I think that's maybe the problem with Scotland, that you need. I think Townsend has always been looking for someone, a playmaker outside of Russell or Hastings. To do that, to give a second kicking option, and maybe come at first receiver a little bit more. And Johnson's a very good player, but we saw that one attempt at a kick. Okay, was it the France game?
Yes,
and it didn't end well.
Yeah,
it was just as well it was on after 9 o'clock. That's all I'm saying.
11. We're all going with Duhan.
Yeah,
Duhan.
We might talk about Duhan a bit more when we do the Lions chat. 10, Russell.
I think that's fairly straightforward.
Given Price at 9.
Yep, I've gone with Price at 9.
Yep.
Right. Scrum then. So we start at the front row. What have you got for front row, John?
Sutherland, Brown, Ferguson.
Rory? Same. Ian?
I also have Sutherland, Brown, Ferguson.
Yeah, I went Sutherland, then I went McInally, Brown, Ferguson, but only because I wasn't sure that you could. I still don't necessarily think that we know whether Brown or McInally are the first choice hooker. Not that that's a problem, because the other one just goes on the bench when they're both fit.
I didn't realise we could pick players who hadn't played, so I had Dave Cherry in there until hastily written Brown.
I did consider putting Cherry in there, to be fair, but yeah, it is supposed to be the strongest 15 that we could possibly put out. I mean, I think the problem with McInally is that they're both their forms kind of yo-yo back and forwards, so we never really have been in a position where they're both on top form. One's always not playing as well as the other, and unfortunately sometimes that's at the point where they're starting. The one who's starting is having a poor game, and then the one that comes off the bench improves things.
Looks like a worldie. Yeah, Brown continues to be like. So I think on current form he just surpasses McInally, but I'm still a bit concerned about he's becoming a bit of a penalty machine.
Yeah,
I'm starting to notice it quite a lot, that the amount of times you see him kind of getting up from the bottom of another breakdown and like protesting at the referee that I wasn't doing anything, sir. It's starting to become quite evident.
I think that's always been the problem with Brown for me, is it's the wrong decisions at the wrong time in the wrong positions of the park sometimes.
Yep.
Second row, I've gone with Cummings and Gray, or Gray and Cummings, depending on which way you want to do it.
Yeah, who would you have on your bench though? In the second
Well,
row?
this says I'd think I'd go with Skinner
Yeah.
because
right.
he fulfills the Rob Harley role of being able to cover in the back row as well. So it means you can then name another back rower.
Yeah, I'd got up to number 19 on a 23, and Skinner was my number 19 as well, and I've gone for Gray and Cummings.
Yeah.
As the starters.
Back row then. I mean, I think we might as well just say we've all got Mish at 7, haven't we?
After all that voting, it would be silly not to.
Yeah.
Mish at 6, 7, and 8.
We ended up at 8, didn't he, against France?
Aye.
There's literally nothing he can't do.
Can do it all.
6, I've gone with Richie.
Yeah.
I think he's still absolutely 100%. I think he is still the classy option at 6. There's an argument to be made for where we're needing a wee bit more in the line out. You could maybe have Blade Thompson coming in. There's the return of the Ryan Wilson, which nobody predicted. There's a few options at 6, but I think Richie's still by far and away the best option there, and his form improved through the Six Nations as well. He'd had a couple of kind of, in the autumn in particular, a couple of games that I think we gave him a 4 out of 10 for one of them. So, he's come back in the Six Nations and he's looked more like himself.
Yeah, I mean, I think he kind of started the tournament quite quietly, but that maybe wasn't a bad thing. I mean, we got the injury after the England game, but that France game was really kind of him back to the form that we know he can have. 8 then, just because I'm going to predict that John and Ian, you've gone for Matt Ferguson because I have 2.
Yep.
Yeah, Rory, who have you gone for 8?
I was tempted by Haining because I thought he had a really good game against France, but I've gone for Ferguson as well.
Yeah,
because I was really impressed by him this tournament, possibly for the first time. Without my Glasgow tinted spectacles on, I've kind of not quite seen what the Warrior Nation have seen in him, but I think, he was brilliant for the games that he was fit to play in. So I would stick him in. It's
interesting. Heining's had 2 really good games in the 2. I think he started the Ireland game on his debut and that France game. I think of the 2 games he's actually started at 8, and the rest have been from the bench. And the games he started, he's played really well in, but I haven't necessarily seen that from him when he's come off the bench.
Yeah, he seems to struggle to get up to the pace off the bench. He seems to maybe not be as adept to that, but certainly starting, and particularly that Ireland game that he started on his debut, he was phenomenal that day. And I would agree, against France, he was really, really strong. So, it's again just great to have that level of depth that, you've got someone of Matt Ferguson's quality, and if he does go down injured, then you can bring a good option in Haining.
Yep. Who have you got, Ian? You've done the bench. I didn't get that far because I only said you start in 15. But who have you got on the bench? Who have you gone with on the bench?
Well, like I said, I've only got up to 19, but McInally is, because I've got Fraser Brown starting, but like you were saying, they're pretty much interchangeable. I just think Brown's got a bit more grunt.
Provided they're playing well, eh?
Yeah.
Keble, Nell, because there's practically no one else. Sam Skinner. Probably at 20, I'd go with Nick Haining.
Yeah.
21, I've not got this far, but 21, Hornito. 22, Hastings. 23, Hugh Jones.
Jones, yeah. If you go on with thing.
21 is a tricky one because I don't think we really saw the best of Scott Steele. We've still got Horn to come back. I still think there's a place for Sam Hidalgo-Klein in there as well. So I think we're still looking for a good kind of replacement for Price, who can genuinely replace him as well, if he's injured.
And I guess Jamie Dobie was properly in the squad by the end of it as well, not just invited to train. So there's depth there, but
he'll be there one day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the opportunity to play. I think that the only thing with Scott Steele, that it's a great story in the fact that he ended up playing back row and wing and everywhere else. But I think that the Italy game showed to me that he's a great option, but I think and he might be very good defensively, but he doesn't offer the same thing, I think, passing wise as the other options, certainly as Horn and you've got with Horn and Price.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
There's a lot of passes above the head, but
good point.
So that's our Scotland 23 as it is. If you've got any different views, then let us know. Martin Bell's suggesting Finlay Christie. One day, Martin. One day, who knows?
Does anyone know how's Matt Scott going these days? Because everyone was clamouring for him to get a shot at 12.
I don't know if he's getting.
I was, yes, guilty.
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's like, just we don't get.
If anyone knows in dispatches how he's getting on, Ben Velikov is coming up to Edinburgh, of course, in the summer as well. So we'll finally get that one ticked off the list of players that Scottish rugby fans are desperate to see play for Scotland.
Get that out the road.
The new Tom Heathcote.
The return of Duncan Weir.
The return of the dunk. Yeah, that's right.
He could be. Speaking. Let's move on, and we're going to move on. That's the end of our Scotland 15. We're going to do this now.
It's the legally mandated Lions chat. The legally mandated Lions chat. We've heard so much about it that it makes us sick, but we've still got to chat about who Gatlin's gonna pick.
Yeah, we've done bits of Lions chat throughout the Six Nations. Not an awful lot because there's been lots of other things to talk about. So what we're going to try and do is come up with, by democracy, which always works well, as we know, our Scottish Rugby blog Lions 15. And what we've got is everyone's chosen their own 15, and we've asked our Patreons to choose their 15s, and I've combined them together based on the number of votes for various people in different positions. So we've got Patreon 15, and we've got our own 15s. As well, so we'll try and come up with our combined Lions 15. This is who I think we've kind of gone on with who we kind of would pick, I guess, a little bit rather than who we think Warren Gatland will pick because who knows.
I've got a couple of slashes. So
this
is who I want, but this is who I think will go.
Yeah. We'll start at we'll do the same way we did the Scotland. Then we'll start at the back. I mean, again, I'm assuming I can say that me and the Patreons have gone for Hogg at 15.
Yeah, so it's everyone apart from Stuart Barnes and Stephen Jones.
Who have they gone for?
Liam Williams.
Liam.
But didn't he play most of it by the on the
wing?
Yeah.
And also, he is an absolute little twat.
Yeah. Well, I think he's
there
another
may
one
be swearing in this segment.
He's another one that's a defensive liability, isn't he? He gives away stupid penalties and backchats. Was he the one that asked the referee playing touch now as he was marching off the field during the Pro 14?
And just long enough so that he was back in time for the Six Nations. Something like that.
Yeah,
I mean, who are the refs? Who are the refs going to be? They're all going to be French refs, right?
Yeah,
probably for the Lions.
Unless
none of us get on with him. Well, I mean, I don't know. We don't know if this is going to happen, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It depends whether any Southern Hemisphere ones are allowed out of their own countries to go and travel to South Africa.
Or if there's no Scots picked, maybe Mike Adamson can do it.
Mike and Holly. First test, second test. No bother.
Who have you guys then got at 14?
Mr. Reece Zammit.
Yeah, I picked him as well. I did swither with Anthony Watson, but just
sheer gas.
I think I've gone without picking any English players, so I like that.
I have gone with Anthony Watson, just because he's a wee bit more experienced.
Yeah,
sure.
He's just.
That's interesting. We've potentially got a tie here because the Patreons also went with Anthony Watson at 14. And I've gone with Keith Earls.
What?
You know what? I can see that. I can completely take that.
I know as much as I hate him and think he's a little. I've gone with Keith Earls.
I think he'll be a dirt tracker because he can cover inside centre.
I think he'll too.
Yeah. He toured in 2009.
He's a
What an
good player. As much
awful
as it pains me to say,
person.
I know he's an awful person, but
I think he means
So
you're
we're
an awful person.
we're trying to win a test match here, John.
I can neither confirm nor deny what I was suggesting there, Rory.
I think I've got to get the casting vote then, because I've gone with
What?
Keith Ellis
Could
between
you
Lewis
really?
Rees-Zammit and Anthony Watson. Because
Choose your next one carefully, Cam.
I know.
So you're breaking a tie between two players with a third player.
Yeah.
That's pretty Gatland. That's pretty Gatland.
I'm going to just put. I'll put Darcy Graham in at 14.
That's fine.
I think my head says Anthony Watson and my heart says Lewis Rees-Zammit.
Yeah.
But what does your heart say?
defence.
I think
Keith
if we're
Earls.
doing Keith Earls, Gatland says Keith Earls. That's what Warren Gatland says. He took one look at his face and thought, "That's a face that's going to put a fear of God into some. That's a face that's going to wind up some South Africans."
Oh dear.
Yeah. Well, we said we're not going to do who. We have got to decide who Gatland's got to pick. As it says in the lyrics of the jingle, but we are kind of doing this as our own choice. I'll go with Lewis Rees-Zammit. Even though, and I'm going to pull our Patreons up, and they chose him at 11. But I'm not going to. I haven't allowed it because he hasn't played 11 during the tournament, so I've overruled them enough. Gone with their second choice. 13. I can see that the Patreons have gone with Jonathan Davies at 13, and I have gone with Chris Harris.
Centre, for me, the two centre spots are the most open because there's a lot of sort of pseudo candidates, but there's nobody going, yeah, pick me. So I picked either Jonathan Davis or Hugh Jones because I'm still on a Hugh Jones kick. But I don't think there's a chance in hell he'll take him.
I've got I was going to come on to kind of the Scottish definites and the Scottish probables later on after we've done this 15, but I think there's part of me that thinks, not that I think that Hugh Jones should go on a Lions tour, but there's part of me that thinks that it's something mad that Gatland might do with some of his selections and go with players who've played in South Africa before.
Yep.
So it might open up the door to a few Irish lads. It might open up the door to someone like Hugh Jones and even Ollie Kebble. Just as these lads can hit the ground running, they're not going to be homesick because they're effectively home. I know Hugh Jones, it was kind of like a second home to him, really, but it's the kind of mad, daft thinking that Warren Gatland might do.
Gatlandism.
Especially if there's not talk that they might have to play all three sort of tests at altitude to try and keep them in a bubble and not travel too much.
Yeah, and it's all that kind of stuff of where you want, it's going to be more isolating than it is normally on a Lions tour because you're not going to be able to go out and do the normal social stuff. You're going to be locked in hotel rooms. So it's the kind of stuff that I think he might think about. And it might be, if there's 50-50 calls, you might come down the way. If there's a 50-50 call for a dirt tracker between another 13 dirt tracker and Hugh Jones, given he can now cover 15, then that call might go his way.
Yeah.
But,
I'm going to throw another name into the mix.
Okay.
Gary Ringrose.
Oh. So who have we got so far? We've got Harris.
Davies, Hugh Jones,
Ringrose. Ian, you're getting the casting vote. Who have you gone with?
Well, let me just tip the board up and storm out with my middle finger up. I've gone for see, some of these are based on various permutations, but I've actually shifted. Well, I've got Chris Harris down as that's who I would want, but what I actually think is an option, and Bonnie might go for, Robbie Henshaw at 13.
Henshaw, yeah.
Oh. I think if we're doing it, I think Harris gets the cast. If you're doing a casting vote, then
Harris has been mentioned.
Harris is mentioned twice, so we'd have to go with Harris at 13. Now 12, then.
Well, now
I went for Henshaw.
See, my 12-13 combo was going to be Farrell Henshaw.
And I was, and see, all right, and you pulled me up for Keith Earls, and you say you're choosing Owen Farrell.
No, this is who I think will play. I've got Henshaw was the first name I've got down.
Yeah.
But I think he might go with Farrell. I thought he would do that in the last series, and I think he would have done this. I think Henshaw hadn't got injured. Was Sexton, Farrell, Henshaw. I thought that's what
I think
Do it
we'll
all
end up
jiffy.
with. I think we're going to end up with Jonathan Davis at 12.
Good
Do
for
you?
you.
Yeah, he's played there for. That's why he played with Wales this year, isn't
Playing there
it?
for Wales this season. He actually played remarkably well there, given that it's not really a natural. The 12-13 shift can be quite difficult for players, particularly when you're coming in one. And I thought he'd done really quite well, actually. And given that he'd had George North outside him, who, for some reason, everybody seems to think is the new Brian O'Driscoll at 13. But like anyone who has any sense and watched him will realise it was like watching Sean Lamont at 13. It's just not
Hey,
pretty.
don't be.
It's
Sorry, in the name of.
I love a bit of Sean Lamont, but you cannot go judge. Who was the other? It was Simon Webster. We played at 13 for a bit as well, didn't we?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Scandalous shout.
Apologies if you're watching this, Sam, but there was a chap called Sam who was doing a poll of the best Edinburgh players to try and compile an ultimate Edinburgh 15, and he'd put Simon Webster in as a 13 rather than Nick DeLuca.
That's a
I think
bold shout.
he said he was going to put DeLuca at 12, but
Yeah.
sorry for calling you out, but Webster was not a 13.
Until George North can pop his own shoulder back in mid-game, then he's not.
He's not Sean Lamont either.
Yeah. Number 11. What have we gone for here now? So I've gone with Doohan, and there's a 3-way split on the Patreons. Well, it's actually a 2-way split because I'm not allowing them Lewis to re-sam it because they got the wrong wing.
Yeah.
I've got Doohan because I just don't think you can ignore those attacking stats. 31 defenders beaten.
Plus the previous point about South Africa also stands.
Yeah.
Aye. Gatlin's likely to have Josh Adams there or thereabouts, but I think Doohan's a massive step up.
Yeah, Liam Williams and Josh Adams were this kind of split choice of the Patreons, but I don't see it.
I think Josh Adams is good.
Yeah, I think like you said, Ian, you can't ignore Doohan's stats, and I think when you look at other wingers, their stats are comparable. I don't think he's defensively weaker than anybody else that you'd be looking at in that position. No. We've matched. I think Ryan Worley of the Rock and Roll Podcast has gone with a back three of Hogg, Lewis, Rees-Zammit, and Doohan as well. So we're matching
pretty close.
Yeah.
And he did seem like such a knowledgeable guy when he was on here. So
number 10 then. Patreons have gone Russell. I haven't. Rory, what have you gone for 10?
I've gone Russell because I like a laugh, and my Lions team will play the same way as my Scotland team.
John, who have you gone with?
It's got to be Russell, and I'm actually disgusted that you have picked Errol's and now you're going to not pick Russell.
He's going to pick Sexton. Just you watch, John.
No.
He's at the power in a minute.
We had a wee chat about this off air last week.
Yeah, me and Ian have gone for the same. We've gone for Dan Bigger.
Look, BT are cutting his connections now.
I just think Dan Bigger had the best form of the fly halves in the Six Nations. I think he's now actually got more of an attacking threat to his game, and we know he's a very good defender. And
plus he's Welsh.
Yeah, there is that also.
Well, he's been on a Lions tour before, I think, as well.
Mm.
I know Finn has technically, but
I think Sexton's age is going to count against him, even though he's in ridiculously good shape. If they are playing at altitude and he's 35, 36, he's expected to run about, organising an attack.
Yeah,
I think Dan Bigger's, as much as I dislike him, not quite Keith Earls level, but he's a bit of a whiner at the ref.
But he managed the game. I thought he managed the games well for Wales.
And he made a mug out of Owen Farrell. So
yeah, I do think as much as people are kind of saying that Russell might not make the tour, I don't think that's the case, because I think Russell's versatility and the fact he can play 12 means that he makes it ahead of Sexton, because like aside from the fact that Sexton's getting on, the fact that Russell can cover 10 and 12 means he's going to make the squad and probably the bench as well. I think it might be a straight shoot between him, and it depends where Farrell ends up in Gatland's mind, but I do think Russell will make the bench at the very least. We've got Russell's made the blog team I have to say, because Rory and John and the patrons have gone with it. So,
Come on.
If it was my team, I would pick Finn Russell, but it's not.
It's not as Lawrence.
Yeah,
I'm
trying to win a test match here, damn it.
I'm not sure which would make Irish Twitter explode the more enjoyably, whether he takes Sexton and then doesn't pick him for any of the tests, or if he doesn't take Sexton at all and picks Russell instead.
I think there's something nice and drawn out about him taking Sexton and not picking him, because then we get to see them explode 3 times rather than just the once.
Yeah, fair.
Oh, it's enjoyable.
For the
Remember
first 2
them.
tests, then drop him for the third.
Oh, goodness, that. And it was the best bit about it was, we have beef with Warren, but the best bit about it was that he was actually justified and vindicated and got the result. And it just, Ireland exploded that day. So beautiful.
Scrum half. I've gone with Price, and the Patreons have gone with Price. Is that?
I've gone with Conor Murray.
Yeah, I've gone Murray as well.
Yeah, that makes me sad. But do you know what? I think you're probably right. But the proud Glasgow fan in me just cannot at all abide by Conor Murray, so I'm not having it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I'm reasonably confident Price is going to be there or thereabouts. I think it might be a straight shoot between him and Conor Murray. Just again, it's the Sexton issue with Conor Murray. He's been around the block a little bit more than Price. So whether he's got the durability for a tour.
I reckon.
I mean, there's a lot of quality Welsh scrum halves, but I can't tell them apart.
I think Price will get at least I can't remember the schedule, but I think he'll get a dirt tracker game, and if he does really well in the dirt tracker game, might get him onto the bench for the second test.
Yeah.
Because obviously you can't play 2 games in a week, or maybe you could put him on the bench for the test match if they wanted. But I think if he impresses, and then there's the scrum halves don't, he could definitely.
You certainly could put him on the bench if you've no intention of using him.
Yeah, but is Graham Grimtree going to be the backs coach for this one? Who are you?
So yeah, your boy's getting murdered out there, but we're not going to put one of the best scrummagers in the Northern Hemisphere on. That's fine, mate.
I'm just going to keep going down the numbers. Then number 8, patrons and myself have gone with Toby Faletau or Toby Faletau.
Big Faletau fan here, so yeah, Faletau.
I think we're going to see a nostalgia pick here. I think CJ Stander is going to get in.
Have you named? So you've named him. You've selected him at 8.
Stander at 8. Yeah.
Rory, what have you gone? I mean, it's 3 for Faletau already. So
decision is made. I've gone Super Bolter.
Nick
Sam
Simmons.
He's just blindingly good, and I can't see. I mean, I know Eddie Jones is a clown, but I can't see why he's not picking him. Because he is a brilliant player. Every time I see him, I think it's Stuart Hogg, and then I realise that's number 8, carving the place up and smashing people. And then my heart rate goes down because it's not Stuart Hogg burying himself in a pile of people. But yeah, every time I've watched Exeter, I can't believe that he's not in the England setup, and I think. I mean, it's going to depend what sort of game he wants. I think he probably will go with Faletau because it's the 50-50 calls are probably going to veer Welsh. But yeah, I think Simmons is brilliant, and I would put him in. Yeah,
and you're not going to have anybody in the room from a coaching point of view talking up for Simmons, are you? Because even if he takes some from the England camp, they don't, unless he takes an Exeter coach.
Yeah, take Rob Baxter as.
Rob Baxter,
yeah. 7.
Then we get Johnny Gray in the team as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 7 for Patreons was only just Hamish Watson. Nearly cancelled some subscriptions.
We need better.
Have your money back.
I don't want your pounds.
Filthy blood money. Yeah, the Mish.
The Mish. Yeah. 6. I changed my 6 late because I had tagged Byrne in the second row, and then I put him at 6 in the end because I couldn't.
I did too as well.
Yeah. So have we all gone with Byrne at 6?
Yeah.
It's a toss up between him and an out of position Mauro Itoje. It's interesting. We might talk about that with the locks. I thought that Itoje had a particularly poor Six Nations. Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Discipline-wise and form-wise. So, he's definitely going on tour, but I don't think he's necessarily... I think he's got a lot to do to make the test team at the moment, given the form of others.
Yeah, I think Byrne probably is ahead of him at the moment, but I think in a lot of ways, the Itoje, almost the kind of hype that's been around him for so many years now, will probably see him there. And again, like he has played well in the past, even though we all absolutely detest him and think he's a horrible human being on the park.
On the wrong pitch.
He
just to clarify, because remember, there's Maro Itoje, the rugby player, and Maro Itoje, the person.
I know. I'm just saying.
And there's a third person. There's also Maro Itoje, the poet. He did an interview once where he talked about himself in the third person. He said there's also Maro Itoje, the poet, the person, and the rugby player.
Maro Itoje, the Range Rover driver.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I think he might sneak in. I think you're going to see actually a lot of the almost the returning heroes from the New Zealand draw, as I like to remind people. You know, they didn't win the series; they actually just drew. So,
yeah. Locks. This was quite tricky to work this out, because I think that there isn't a 4 and a 5. You just have to go with a kind of lock pairing. So the Patreons went with Alan Wynne-Jones and Maro Itoje. I've gone with Johnny Gray and James Ryan, because I thought Gray had an okay, until he got injured, I thought Gray had a good Six Nations, and I think he's playing quite well for Exeter at the moment. I think if Gray was still at Glasgow, I don't think he'd be going on tour.
Yeah, that's fair.
Who have you gone with, Ian?
I've got Alan Wynne-Jones and Ian Henderson.
Ooh.
Alan Wynne-Jones as the skipper.
So I think Alan Wynne-Jones makes the squad then. So we've got 2 votes for Henderson, 1 for Gray. John, who have you gone with?
Yeah, so I had Gray and Ryan actually. I think Gray and Ryan is a good match.
So that makes
2 votes for Ryan, 2 votes for Gray,
2 votes for
2 votes for Henderson.
So Henderson.
So what we're then saying is that we're putting Magnus Bradbury, the second row, in now.
Yeah. Sticking Blair King, Scott Steele.
Scott Steele,
yeah.
I say, if you're watching this live, the first person that comments can get to choose the 4th. So you've got a straight shoot between Johnny
Ryan
Gray,
Henderson,
Ian Henderson, and
James Ryan.
So if you're watching this, and there are people watching this live, and you want to just type something in, the first thing that comes up will be the selection. We'll go on to talk about props while we see if anybody wants to jump in with that. Who have you gone with then at for 3? I can never work out which way around. Is it Lucid at 3? Oh, Sally Beveridge. Well done, Sally Beveridge. You've come in.
Well done, Sally.
Sally, you've got in first. Ian Henderson.
Unlucky Richard Hawkes, though. He was.
We've actually had a second. Martin Bell's also gone with. We've actually had second. That's been seconded as well. To be fair, and Richard nearly got in there with Johnny Gray.
Oh well.
Well done, guys. Well done.
So thank you for milking that decision for us. 3. Which way? Right. I get.
3's tight.
3's tight. 3's tight heads. So I've gone with Furlong.
Yeah, I think everyone's gone with
Furlong.
I think everyone should go with Furlong anyway.
Yeah, I think
that sidestep.
And look, I think it will be that, but the argument's there. Xander had a decent tournament. Like the game, the game and a half that he played plus the Italy game. The France game. He had a decent showing, and he's been coming on a lot recently. And I think there's to be said for him.
I think when you look at his stats and the work that he does around the park in terms of the rucks he hits as well, I think kind of stand him in quite good favour. We'll get on to talk about the Scottish definites and probables in a minute when we've done our 15, and we'll probably work out where he fits in that.
Yeah.
Hooker. it's quite hard because like McInally and Brown didn't get to play, and I don't think I'm not taking. Well, there's Dave Cherry's obviously there or thereabouts with his phenomenal gas that he has.
There is a hashtag. Cherry for Lions.
Cherry for Lions. That's it. Let's get the boys, rally the troops. Rory, call in the banners.
If it was a vote, he'd be assured, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
The Patreons, I think, went for Ken Owens, and I've gone with Ken Owens as well.
I was thinking about that. Yeah.
I think it could be a chance for us to sneak an Englishman onto the team with Jamie George, but he didn't have a great tournament.
Yeah.
It's
not been a vintage. It's not a vintage year for hookers.
Or indeed English players.
Yeah.
Usually looks like a wee bit. I know Jamie George usually looks a little bit
out of shape.
Portly, yeah, as a Munster coach. The vociferously told him a couple of years ago.
It wasn't a coach, it was a doctor. He was just dishing out medical advice. It was once this doctor told him he was fat.
Your BMI's through the roof, lad. I've gone with Owens because George wasn't good, and I think he looks even more out of shape than usual. Same with Michael Vunipola. I thought they were both honking basically throughout the tournament.
It's a shame. I think it's a shame for Brown and McInally because actually, just purely because of a lack of talent elsewhere, they wouldn't have had to have done. They just would have had to show up and been competent in order to kind of get on the tour. We'll
talk about this very soon, but there's still a chance they could be on the tour because if you're looking at versatility, Owens isn't exactly. I mean, I don't remember him covering back row.
I do.
Do you? Have you seen him cover back row?
Was it 1920 season? Scarlett's had a ridiculous injury list, so he played at 8 a couple of times.
So he did, yes, that's right.
That's right, so he did actually, yeah. In my head, you said 1920 season. I was like, that's a really nasty joke about how old he is. I get you now.
The same team, yeah.
Who have you gone with at 1 then? Patrons went Wyn Jones. I've gone with Wyn Jones as well. I think Sutherland was okay.
I went Sutherland, but I think his arm may be screwed.
Yeah.
So he may not be able to.
I've gone Wyn Jones, but that's as is my wont. I did a 23 again. I'm surprised as well because his experience. I think Keane Healy will go.
I was going to pick Healy. Yeah, I think Healy will be there or thereabouts. And I think again he's not had, in that sort of position where there's. Wyn Jones is all right, but there's no real absolute standout in that position. So a bit of experience, and Healy's had an all right season. I think that he'll be there or thereabouts.
Yeah,
I would love to see a kind of Celtic rainbow front row though, with Sutherland, Owens, and Furlong. That'd be great crack.
Oh, banter in the front row would be quite something, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm delighted to say we've gone for an entire 15 without a single English player.
Apart from Ian, he picked Watson.
Yeah, but he didn't make it. Watson
didn't make the cut. Neither did Sam Simmons.
Yeah,
true, actually,
who's an English player but not an England player.
That would be acceptable, wouldn't it?
And I mentioned that other guy's name.
Oh yeah, you did.
That fella.
Yeah. We're forgiving you.
Pearl Jam picking Owen Farrell. I'm just rubbing everyone up the wrong way.
So then, if we're looking at the squad, then, and now we're kind of putting our heads on rather than our hearts, and who we think Gatland's likely to take on tour. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 definites, including Sutherland, with a question mark because he may be injured.
So definites is a strong word.
Definites is a strong word if we finish 4th.
Yeah.
Just to contradict myself from earlier.
True. I've gone Watson, Harris, Sutherland, Ferguson, Zander, that is Doohan, Hogg, Price and Russell.
Yeah. I'll say it again. I think definites is a strong word, but I think all of those players are in so if you were to come down to there's one spot in the plane and it's down to 2 players, that player and another, they are there or thereabouts. Like all those players have a real shot at going in. I think probably if I was to say definites, the only definites I would say is Hogg, Russell, Watson.
I don't even know if Russell's a definite.
No, I
like to think he
talking about
was,
touring
but-
party, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I
But
think
Hogg and Watson, you should definitely go with.
Yeah, I think with Russell, it's more like, well, who else is there? So you've got Russell, Bigger, Sexton, Farrell, and Ford.
Ford, yeah.
So if
It kind of comes down to what he does with Farrell, doesn't it? Really?
yeah, it's whether he takes Farrell. Whether I mean Farrell, and again, he's not had a great Six Nations or been on form lately, but he has been on 2 Lions tours, I guess.
He's not going to be playing any European games either to sort of keep him in the spotlight.
It's true.
Yeah. So the maybes then, and these are kind of, I think Richie's a maybe. I think as a possible dirt tracker, the one thing I thought goes in Richie's favour is what the Lions have tended to do traditionally. I think Gatlin buys into this is you take players on tour who are potentially going to tour again in future.
Yeah.
And they've done that in the past. So there's the guys that we want to just get you on Alliance to show you what it's all about, knowing that you're going to be there next time. So I've got Richie down for that one as a possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very good argument for taking Fagerson on, because I mean he's still pretty young, but he could easily be the starting tight head in 4 years' time.
Yep. Johnny Gray, I think, is a maybe. I think there's only because I think the depth at lock is stupid, ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous
elsewhere. So it's not that he's not good enough. It's just that I think there's so many other options elsewhere. Cummings, I thought, is injured. I thought this is one of. I don't know how bad his injury is. It was more again the Richie argument of he's potentially a lock that you would. He's probably the youngest lock, I think, out of the ones that would be available for Alliance Tour if he's not injured. So again, that kind of long game that Cummings is likely to be there in 4 years. The absolute, but when we're talking about bolters, Cammy Redpath.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder I think the mad thing that Warren Gatlin might do.
It's the sort of thing Gatlin would love. I think, yeah, absolutely.
Also, because I kind of feel like he'd be rubbing Eddie Jones's nose in it as well.
Oh, poor Eddie. See, if he wasn't such a numpty the rest of the time, we would all be feeling sorry for him just now.
Shame he is a numpty the rest of the time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, good point.
Hugh Jones and Ollie Kebble I've got as maybes just for the reasons we talked about already, just that it's kind of home turf for them. And if that even enters into thinking, then they might come into the reckoning as, again, kind of you're there as a dirt tracker and holding tackle bags for people, but you maybe don't feel, if you're in South Africa, that doesn't hit you as hard as if you're someone that's miles and hours away from home.
Brown and McAnally maybe.
Well, that's maybes as well. True. The other two that I thought, and Ian McGill's beating me to it, is Sam Skinner. Ian says that Gats would love his versatility. I do wonder whether or not that, like you were saying about Simmons, Rory, that the X factor, that you might even see Sam Hildalgo-Klein get a call up again. It's just Warren Gatlin two-thing. I'm going to choose a Scottish player, but I'm not going to choose the one that you want me to pick. Yeah. I'm going to choose my own Scottish player just to annoy you all.
See, although I think versatility is a good thing, there's a lot of guys who do that sort of 5-6.
Like Byrne.
Byrne, Itoje. Even if he wasn't injured, Courtney Laws, who's been on Lions tours. Joe Launchbury as well. He's another one who's not been fit, and he's a cracking player. Although he only covers lock, but again that shuts down a lock spot. And then you've got your likes of someone like Josh Navidi, who we know Gatlin loves and can play all across the back row. So there are so many different sort of variables on it.
Yeah,
I mean, size of squad's going to come into it too. Whether he can, how many genuine open sides can he afford to take, sort of thing.
It's difficult because there's lots of reports saying he's taking a stripped down squad, but I really don't understand how he can. I actually think he's going to have to take a large squad because it's in normal times you can take a stripped down squad, because if you get someone goes down for an injury, because it's South Africa, there's no time difference. You might have some altitude acclimatization, but you can call somebody over. They can be on a plane and on the training pitch within a few hours. But you can't do that. You can't call somebody over and then stick them in a hotel for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to travel with enough, which I think is where versatility plays into it, because he's going to have to travel with a big enough squad so that if anybody goes down injured, it's not absolutely critical. Or if they get a run of injuries in one position, that they've got enough cover, because you can't sit around and wait for 2 weeks for somebody to be able to play. Unless
they have like a holding party hotel somewhere in South Africa filled with like Geography 6, just sitting around by the pool waiting for the call.
Just a squad of 24th men.
Yeah.
It's that thing you wonder whether, from the Geography 6 point of view, that I know that Gregor Towns was saying that they haven't announced what Scotland are doing in the summer yet. But I don't know, it just seems like you wonder whether or not one of the other home nations goes and kind of does a shadow tour with the Lions for that reason, possibly, with their own bio bubble, and then you can just say players can move back and forward. A bit like essentially that's how Ryan Wilson got in to play against France. He'd done 2 COVID tests that week. It wasn't for anything else other than that he didn't have COVID and he was available.
We were probably the winners of bio bubbles, are we not? So it should be us, because Wales didn't a couple that were.
Well, was it Josh Adams had a baby shower?
It's gender reveal party or something.
That was it, yeah. Which he should be. I mean, he should be banned from having a gender reveal party anyway.
Cammy, come on.
Wash. Ridiculous idea.
That's how wildfires start.
Exactly. People have done, but gender reveal parties have probably caused more deaths than, I don't know, it's like something than fires. I think there's been like exploding cakes and all sorts of stuff that's taken people's lives.
Yeah, there was one
deadly.
When I saw the other day. It's somebody tried to like skywrite a message, and the plane nosedived into the sea.
Jeez.
There's been a couple of wildfires that started because there've been fireworks that have been let off.
There's definitely been a cake exploded in someone's face.
Just write a Facebook post, all right? Just stop showing off.
Nobody,
That should be filed under the category of things that should not be a thing.
Yeah. The things that should not be a thing that you break a bio. Definitely things that shouldn't be a thing you break a bio bubble for.
Yeah.
I'll give you
we'll put that in the list as well, right?
Waffle. What about baby showers with waffles?
It's like a double whammy then, isn't it?
Double whammy.
Depends what waffles. If it's potato waffles, it's fine.
Yeah.
I bought some potato waffles earlier on today. I'm very excited about.
Did you do them in the toaster?
I'm going to do them in the toaster. Yeah, that's what real men do.
That's the way to do it. I used to work with a guy who swore by tin burgers, and he reckoned he could cook them in the kettle. He said he used to come home after a night out, 2 slices of white bread, tin of burgers in the kettle.
Oh, them up. So grim. So grim.
I hope he had a separate kettle for making cups.
I was going to say.
No, he didn't.
Nice fatty cup of tea for you there.
Unless you cooked them in the tin, in the kettle.
No, I don't think he did that.
Yeah, that's quite disgusting.
It does sound something like, very master chefy. It's like, I'm going to cook this in a kettle at exactly 100 degrees.
Jim was
sous vide burgers.
Yeah. Hello, Jim, if you're watching. Right, I think that we've covered the Lions now, so we're going to move on. We've got a very, very quick one of these.
Well, we're a little high and we're a little low. We seem to get by on in speedos, but I just want to know, did you see the legend that's Dougie Donnelly?
Yes, it's Where's Dougie Donnelly. It's your chance to tell us if you've seen anybody out and about remotely linked with Scottish rugby. And now that lockdown's over, hopefully you'll start get a few more sightings in. I think the best one's still Dougie Donnelly with a bag for life in Sainsbury's car park. Although I think Richie McCaw playing bagpipes at a Wiggles concert we had a couple of weeks ago was pretty special as well.
Pretty strong, isn't it?
But Sam Marsh got in touch. He slid into my DMs on Twitter and said that he once saw Ross Ford in the middle seat of an EasyJet flight from Bristol to Edinburgh in 2016. The thought of, can you imagine getting on an EasyJet flight and finding that Ross Ford was in the middle seat? I mean, I'm not sure that's safe from a safety point of view. I mean, you're going to have your armrest up the whole time.
You'd be reading your book like that.
Yeah.
So when I worked offshore, there was obviously, when you travel by helicopter, there's like serious consideration has to go into the weight balance of the helicopter. And there was one guy I worked with, it was a Dutch lad, and he was utterly massive. He was like the Ross Ford of the offshore game. And like, it would take 2 men to balance out this guy. So
did they have to send somebody out with a helicopter there and back just to balance the helicopter?
Yeah, that's it. Basically, yeah. They had to ship in. It was like, like in Formula One, they use like weights to kind of weight down your, weight down the car. It's the same situation. It's like, John, could you just put these 2 lead things in your bag, please, mate?
So that's Where's Diggy Johnley. So if you've seen anybody out and about, let us know. Now it's time for this. Yes, it's time for Hands in the Ruck, the Any Other Business section of the podcast, where we ask you to get in touch with anything that's particularly annoyed you or delighted you in the past week. Ian, I'll start with you. We've got a few on Facebook, but I'll start with you. What's had its hands in your ruck this week? You look absolutely petrified as though you've not thought of one.
Don't start with me, I'm just constantly annoyed at everything. So
John looks prepared.
All the world.
I've managed to work mine out just in the last 3 minutes or so.
That's fine. Go ahead then, John. What's your...
So I'm a bit peeved at the reaction from... So, you know how Hands in the Ruck is basically my Have a Dig at Scottish Rugby Fans section? So yeah. I'm a bit peeved at the reaction. Let's say the hot takes that have come out of Racing absolutely scalping Edinburgh all over the place. Now, as much as I enjoyed it from a spectacle perspective...
From a rugby point of view.
From a neutral standpoint, no. It's really interesting to see people reacting to what is probably one of the best teams, one of the best club sides in the world, utterly taking apart, an Edinburgh side that, yes, they had plenty of first-team players in there, but no one is... Right. In reality... Edinburgh sneaked into the knockout stages of this ridiculous Champions Cup that we're doing by proxy, right? And they got drawn against one of the best teams and they get pumped. And that's what's going to happen. Scottish Rugby is not in a place in the club game that we are competing with the Racings, the Leinsters, even, mention the dirty word, the Saracens back in the day. We don't compete against these teams because we don't spend tens of millions of pounds on our salary bills every year to attract players to our teams. And in some cases, spend tens of millions of pounds more than the salary cap. So it should come as no surprise to, by sheer finance alone, Edinburgh and Racing, there is about 40 points between them. And that's just the reality of it. That's just where we're at. And for people to be so incredulous about the fact that Racing, I thought Richard Cockerell after the game was incredibly forthright and incredibly just totally engaging. I actually really, really enjoyed his interview because he was just like, "Do you know what? We were up against a bloody good team today and we got gubbed." And that's what's going on. Yeah, we put plenty into it. We played well, but they're just better than us. And that's what paying millions of pounds for players gets you.
Yeah. Pete Foster actually had this as his Hands in the Ruck on our super secret social media page. He said, Edinburgh getting thrashed by Racing. I wasn't expecting a win, but that was worse than we should expect. Worryingly, that was a load of first choices playing, but they were a shambles. He did say perhaps because so many of them were playing their fourth high-intensity match in 19 days. I think the other side of it is, they would have had little time together as a squad because a lot of the players coming back have been with Scotland for so long as well. So there is that, given that they're not millionaires who've.
The fact that you're talking about a racing team that's missing Finn Russell through suspension, and they go and they bring in Curtly Beale. They've got Curtly Beale starting. You're like, all right, come on, guys, this is taking it a wee bit. Come on, really? Yeah. No, I mean, and you can argue Edinburgh maybe didn't show up. They maybe were overawed by the occasion. That's what Edinburgh do in knockout rugby. So that's understandable. But I don't see that anybody's coming away from that game thinking, right, we've got plenty to work on, but you just got pumped by a better team.
Yeah, I mean, All Up 84 said there is competing, John, and then there is embarrassing.
You know what? See if you're up against the best rugby players in the world and they put 40 points past you. That's what you expect. I've played in games where we've had 100 points past us, and you know what? You do feel embarrassed, but you then remember the quality of the opposition you're up against.
I can't believe I've just given you an open goal to actually say that Edinburgh were embarrassing there, John, and you didn't take it.
I'm not taking it because I am growing as a person, and I did say that I may have enjoyed them getting pumped, but
they were kind of in it for the first half hour. Got that try cut off, and it's the second racing try, and then at the end they just capitulated.
They did. They absolutely buckled.
Three or four tries in the last 12 minutes.
Yeah. Which again probably put a more accurate appraisal on the scoreline, but that's. You're up against the best players in the world. This is what's going to happen. Nobody sits and play. You don't go up against the All Blacks, take a 50-pointer as, the comparison is maybe Racing versus Edinburgh is the same as All Blacks versus Georgia, right? And, Georgia wouldn't go and play the All Blacks and take a 50-point scalping and go, oh, do you know what? That was really embarrassing. They would go, that's probably about right, to be fair, in terms of the gap between us.
Yeah. Very good.
Yes, I have just compared Edinburgh to Georgia. Bring the letters, guys. Bring them. Feed my hate.
I was going to leave that hanging there, John, that comparison. Craig Manson got in touch to say he went to buy a Scotland women replica shirt for his 11-year-old who plays and wanted to watch the Six Nations game against England. Nothing available apart from a women's fit men's replica on sale. Am I not right in saying they promised one when they launched the new shirt? SIU want to grow the women's game unless it includes investing money into it. I'm getting fed up with banging my head on a brick wall with this. I think they released a limited run on the women's shirt. I know they had distribution issues early doors with it because I think Macron are based in Italy, aren't they? So I think there was a women's shirt with the Scottish Energy branding on it. But he's right to check. There's none available anymore. So
I had a problem a couple of years ago getting a Warriors top as well.
I think it's in that chase. I think the other issue is it's in that stage of the cycle, isn't it, where we're due new. Scotland had a kit launch for the autumn and Six Nations, but Glasgow and Edinburgh will be getting their new kits soon as well, won't they, for next season?
Right.
And
now, the markup on these things is enormous.
Yeah.
So even if you did, let's say he asked for one, and they just charge him an extra $5 or whatever. I mean, the markup already is included. It's massive. So if he says, if Craig orders whatever, and they go, oh, we don't have any in stock. Tell you what, we'll get one knocked up for you, because I doubt it's a very complicated process, and like I said, charge him an extra $5, you're already making a buttload of profit, and then somebody sees it, goes, that's a pretty smart top, where can I get one of them? There you go, more orders. If they're underestimating merch, then that's cutting off a revenue stream for you.
Unless it was like a trial to see what interest there was, and they've sold out. So hopefully the next time the kit's redesigned, there'll be more available. Like I said, the markups are absolutely absurd for sport and kit. I don't really understand why.
Got you over a barrel. It's like, prove you're a true fan and all that by the news kit.
Oh, don't! That's been hands in the ruck so many times. Oh, that makes me so angry.
£80 a season.
Although I did just order a training top from a reputable online marketplace that is not the auction place, and it has arrived today, but I am sad to say I'm going to have to send it back because it has arrived with the ink tag still on it.
Oh.
And I phoned him up, and I got this lovely gentleman on the phone. He was just like, "Yeah, so sometimes our warehouse staff do that. I'm really sorry. Yeah, you can just wait for the shops to open. The shops will be open next week." And I was like, "I'm not in England, mate. Can you not tell by the accent?" He's like, "Oh, I'll give you 20% off your next order if you keep it and take it to the shops when it's ready."
But no, you'll send me a new one, give me 20% off anyway.
Exactly.
Use the menacing voice.
I've got the return label arriving. Don't worry.
My hands in the ruck is Matt Williams.
Yeah.
It's a retro. It's a retro hands in the ruck.
Yeah.
He did a thing on Irish telly recently where he was interviewed. It was like My Life in Rugby kind of thing, and there was a couple of clips came out of him talking about his time with Scotland and the absolute whopping lies that he told during that, like provable lies as well, were ridiculous. He was out bench at 44 years old. He was out bench pressing some of the Scotland backs, apparently. And he also claimed that the SRU bought him new gym equipment that he had to then assemble himself, but they didn't provide any weights for it and said that it wasn't in the budget for this year. And he'd have to buy them.
How could you bench press people if they don't have any weights?
Exactly. And also, I mean, Ian McGeechan was director of rugby at the time, so he would have been the one saying, "We haven't got weights in my budget." There's no way Ian McGeechan is going to tell, like, not buy a gym kit and then not make sure they come with weights attached. It seems, I mean, I'm sure it's a lovely story to tell, like an after dinner speech, I'm sure, but it was just.
I like the story where he was better at lineouts than Scott Murray.
I missed that one.
Something about he was having to teach. They were having to figure out. They had chairs with the England shirts with white shirts on, and they were trying, and none of the players could figure out who they were going to take at the lineout.
Yeah, and I don't have it here. I think I remember the loose five of the pack. It was Murray, Grimes, Simon Taylor, Jason White, and Cammy Mather. And you try to tell me they don't know how to deal with a line out. You try to tell me they don't know who's.
You wouldn't say it to their faces anyway.
I know.
When we get two or three lines in there, Taylor and White.
Scott Murray went on to be a line-out coach as well, did you know?
Yep.
Maybe Matt Williams taught him everything he knows.
Yeah.
It's ludicrous.
Which is why his team only have a 17% line-out completion ratio.
Yeah, it's ludicrous. That's not. I don't think. I think I can understand why he's trying to make his time as a Scotland coach, which was abysmal, look better than it was. But I mean, it's just ridiculous. Though that's not the reason Scotland were rubbish during his term, and they went from like being semi-decent under McGeechan to being utter rubbish.
But when you sack arguably one of the world-class players that you have, that's going to do that.
Yeah, I mean that's in the Greg. You can go back and listen to. We talked about Gregor Townsend's autobiography in one of our lockdown podcasts, and there's a bit in Townsend's autobiography where he talks about Matt Williams, who phoned him up basically and said, "Can you retire from international rugby?" And Townsend said no. So Williams said, "You put me in an awkward position because I don't want to pick you. You can, I'll name you in the squad, but don't bother turning up."
What a classy guy.
Yeah. The dark days of Scottish rugby.
I know. We genuinely, some fans just now don't know they're born. Like what
some
you
of them
guys
weren't,
are...
John, and it's hard to remember. It makes me feel old though sometimes, right? Some of them weren't born.
Look what you are going through now, and look what we had to go through. See these, I mean, actually, we're all 24 years of age. It's just that we look so much older.
Scottish rugby did this to us.
Exactly.
There's at least 3 lines on my forehead that were caused by Scott Johnson. I think it was that
we
point
could get
where
a lot of tattoos for each frown line. Scott Johnson, Andy Robinson.
This is the time that Scott Johnson kept picking Ross Ford, even though he was throwing rubbish at lineouts and doing crap in the scrum. Wouldn't he pick anybody else? Martin Bell, last time. Martin, but Rory, you haven't thought of one in the meantime, have you?
Interestingly, it kind of came on from what John was saying. I saw a few tweets, namely one from a newspaper south of the border that shall remain anonymous, but its name rhymes with Daily Belly Laugh, and they were suggesting that Edinburgh's pasting had perhaps done serious damage to the Lions' credentials of. But I mean, the subtext was presumably, why do they keep voting for Hamish Watson in these bloody polls? Don't you know? We're not going to allow him to get picked.
Within the European Cup official Twitter account, we're like going, Ember rubbish, but look, here's Hamish Watson being amazing during this game.
That's the thing. He is the one guy that, and I've made this point, I think last time I was on, that he's been great even when the team around him are rubbish. So I don't think, there's. Plus, he keeps getting voted in all these polls, so there's very little Gatland can do to not take him. Yeah. If you ask me.
Martin Bell's hands it up of celebrity Lions 15s. I think all Lions 15s can get in the bin, really. There's I saw somebody just put out a tweet. I can't remember, some parody account who said, "I've seen your Lions 15, it's crap." I was like, yeah, that applies to everybody's Lions 15s. There's no point debating it. Everyone thinks everybody else's is crap, so...
Yeah. Squidges was all right.
I like Squidges. Squidges' Lions 15 of Lions was very good for April Fools.
Some bolters in there I hadn't heard of, so...
I like the fact they put Cecil the Lion at 6 because he's literally willing to put his life on the line. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Very good. So that's it for this week. We've not quite hit 2 hours, but we've got there or thereabouts. We'll be back next week. We'll have the women's game preview next week. We'll maybe do a shorter podcast next week, and we'll maybe do something special for our Patreons. We'll work on that over the next week. And don't forget, visit the blog, scottishrugbyblog.co.uk. Sign up for the Patreon if you want to have ad-free versions of these podcasts, or even just condensed versions, which will probably get down to an hour this week rather than the hour and 45. By the time I cut out the nonsense. But for the moment, it is goodbye from me and goodbye from Rory, John, and Ian.
Ciao.
Goodbye, guys. Thanks for listening.